Okay, you push record and then point to Sarah. Okay. Ready?
All right, let's get into our program now. We have our very own councilman of the city of Petoskey, Brian Wagner, will give us some words on his service. Just over a year he's been in this position. So take it away, Brian.
Awesome, thanks, Sarah. Great to be here with the Sunrise Rotary, my fellow Rotary. And yeah, it's been an interesting 13 months of public service. If I could see more of you, I would have you raise your hands to tell me who else has ever been in an elected office, but we can't do that. So I expect some of you have been. And I'm going to talk about some of the highlights and some of the challenges and a little bit of my story. And I presented something similar to the Noon Rotary a few months ago, and most of them I don't think knew me at all. At least most of you know me a little bit, but career-wise, I consider myself a consultant, an entrepreneur, and I do some executive coaching. My wife and I have been married coming up on 36 years. We were married at St. Francis Church here in Petoskey. And even though I've only been here full-time for 3 years, this has been an annual stop for us and more for a number of years, and including some extended stays. And since I've moved here 3 years ago, I've become very involved with a number of nonprofit boards and leadership positions and so on, and really love this town. And those pictures are just to represent me at Bliss Fest and me with one of the staff at Beards. When most people ask me what I do and who I am, I say I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude. So a little into the story. So I was not looking to run for public office, but a young gentleman I was mentoring in leadership, Little Travers, asked me to consider running for city council. And I should have changed this year. I believe that was 2019. And I actually started serving in January 2020. But so he asked me, and I reached out to friends and family in the area, and the support was tremendous, and in particular from young people, but from a number of people. And so I agreed to run. I went through the appropriate process, and a few days later, I got a call at 9 a.m. from the news review, and I thought they were calling to find out who the stranger was running for office in town. And instead, it was a call asking what I thought and if I wanted to comment about the incumbent Grant Dittmeyer dropping out of the race, which I went into silence, and the reporter asked me if I wanted to comment later or send in my comments, and I said no. First of all, I'm shocked. Second of all, I understand Mr. Dittmeyer is well respected. He's very intelligent. He's a good listener, and he follows through. And I hope I can bring some of those same characteristics to the office. I didn't run against anybody, but I decided I should run a full campaign, and I raised money. I knocked on doors. Ultimately, I won, but the campaigning was super interesting because I'm a fairly outgoing person, but going to knock on a door the first time was awkward and a little bit intimidating. And when they invited me in and we had a 20-minute discussion, I realized I couldn't do that at every door in town, and I needed to change my process. But it was very rewarding. I met a number of interesting and good people throughout my ward, which is Ward 3. I won, and then I was offered an opportunity to sign up for a Michigan Municipal League training course for newly elected officials. And I didn't know what MML was, but our city and city staff are members, and they offer a lot of training and information that's valuable to municipalities across the state of Michigan. Lindsay Walker and I drove down to Grand Rapids together, went through the course that included some elements of civil discourse and what that means, and I'll come back to that. They taught us that in the world of being on city council and mayor, there are a lot of different kinds of funds and big budgets, and the general fund is the one that we have to pay the most attention to and the one that we can impact the most. And then, like in any new job or any new role, there's acronyms. And I had heard people at City Hall referring to FOIA and referring to OMA, and I wasn't really sure what they are, but they actually go back to the Nixon administration and the end of the Nixon administration and Watergate. And somewhere in the mid-late 70s, I think it was 1978, the first Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, and the Open Meetings Act, OMA, were passed at the federal government level. And Freedom of Information Act, meaning that any of my correspondence, my phone calls, and back in the 70s, it would have been recordings of meetings, could be taken and used against me, could be used in court and so on as an elected official. They had no idea that such a thing like Facebook and Twitter and emails would come about, and the legislation has not changed since the 70s. So very interesting, and I even had people encourage me to not be on Facebook and not be on LinkedIn. And thankfully, I'm not really concerned about what I say and how that information might be used. The second one is the Open Meetings Act, and that means, I believe it's 18 hours before a public meeting, you need to announce that to the public in a number of different ways. And with 5 of us on City Council in Petoskey, the mayor and 4 council members, 3 of us constitute a quorum. And if at any time 3 of us were to meet and communicate, that could be considered an open meeting, and that could be held against us. So any 3 of us at any given time, we can't communicate on social media in any way. We have to stay separated. And so very interesting. And thankfully, due to the 2020 global pandemic and quarantines, some of those acts and legislation were modified to allow us to meet on Zoom. And what would have been illegal open meetings prior to that, well, basically due to Governor Whitmer's executive orders, when the executive orders were shot down, all of the meetings that happened before that were considered unconstitutional. And so some legislation had to be passed to say that they were legal meetings. So some very interesting elements to that. Number of accomplishments that I'm proud of, but I'm really proud of Rob Strabel, who's on this morning, and our city staff, because I haven't said it yet, but we're considered, our form of government in Petoskey is considered a weak city manager, strong city manager, weak mayoral system. And the city staff really run this city. The city council is elected to provide guidance, act on policy, set policy, but the city each and every day is run by the city staff, and we've got just an outstanding city staff. I'll talk more about that, and I'll talk more about that system. Going back about a year, we started a process of developing a new city master plan. Here it is, January 2021, and our city council is going through the draft, making updates to it, making sure that we all feel good, all 5 of us feel good before it goes out to public comment. And we'll be completing that in early February and sending it out. And I think it's a 63-day review process, if I remember right. As you know, we had considerable shoreline damage this year with high waters, and have had to conduct a number of studies that have amounted to millions of dollars. I forget the total now, but it's over $10 million that we now need to address to prevent future damage and also to protect what's there. We opened two new pickleball courts at Riverbend Park, very, very popular, and installed a bicycle repair station at Bayfront Park and hammock areas, thanks to our Parks and Rec department or commission and department. From a sustainability resiliency initiative standpoint, sustainability is really one of my passions, and it's all about making decisions today that can impact our future generations, our kids, our grandkids, and their kids. And a number of great things are going on, including we need to replace the dam in town. And we've got 3 or 4 different options for that. And we're applying for grants, and we're looking at ways to do that effectively, and including making it even more fishable than it is, and preventing things like lamprey eels from getting up out of the lake into our river. So some really smart things. We've conducted a tree management and inventory study sadly, that the trees were counted and inventoried, and we had a major tree storm and lost a lot of them. So some of the work had to be redone. And as you may have seen down by Bayfront Park, the promenade, we had 22 aging and diseased trees, beautiful canopy that I liked, but now we have better views, and we've planted trees that will actually fit the climate and fit that area better than before. Big kudos actually to Rob Strabel and his team. Kendall Klinglesmith, I think in particular, is just outstanding at grant funding and writing grants. And in 2020, we received over $1 million in grants to get a lot of what we do done without having to impact our tax base. I'm kind of proud of early COVID, early shutdown. The DMB, or Downtown Management Board, requested a midway event and later on a social district approval for our downtown, for our shopping area. And the midway event, we basically, as city council, gave them the rights to not have to come back to us and do things for downtown businesses, including curbside platforms to extend outdoor eating from the restaurants that couldn't do that. They added picnic tables to the downtown park area. They included the ability, if people wanted to have alcohol with their picnic, at those picnic tables, to do that. And then the social district status, that's actually approved at the state level. We became one of the early social districts in the state with an area mapped out, allowing certain restaurants who get the license to sell alcoholic beverages that can be carried in the streets and carried around the downtown management area. There was some concern about the number of hours that we would do that and the reputation sort of as downtown Petoskey, but we all agreed that it's already allowed in the parks, which a lot of people didn't know, and other municipalities across the state of Michigan were doing that. And now we're seeing some of the restaurants, I think we have 4 or 5 approved, who are allowing that to happen with specific cups that are labeled for that. And in both cases, as city council, we approved that immediately when they were asked. And sadly, the social district thing, by the time the restaurants got their approvals from Lansing, it was a little late to impact the nice weather anyway, but it will hopefully carry into next year. And that was our big request. We'll approve these things. Please document progress with them. Let us know how they went, because maybe some of these things aren't specific to COVID and the pandemic and the shutdown. Maybe they're just good experiments and things that we can apply in future years. So interesting conversation about a year ago right now around the term of both the mayor and city council, as well as our compensation. So from a term standpoint, the current term for the mayor is 1 year, city council is 2 years, and on next year's voting ballot, 2021, or this year's November 2021, we'll be voting to extend the mayor to 2 years and the city council to 3. A number of benefits with that, including it costs a lot of money, takes a lot of effort to run a campaign, and to only serve for 1 year is a little bit crazy in my mind. And a lot of my constituents, as I knocked on doors, couldn't believe that it was only 1 year. The 3-year term for city council actually allows us to, whether you're in Ward 1, 2, 3, or 4, to land on national election campaign years on a regular basis. Right now, only 2 of the wards have their elections on a national campaign year when most people show up to vote. Both of these issues, we found out from our city attorney, Jim Murray, are legislated at the state level. And we thought we could just pass these or consider these and have them enacted maybe 2 years from now and not actually impact us, your current representatives. Well, it turns out exchanging terms has to be voted on by the general public, the voters. Changing the compensation requires something totally different. We had to form a compensation committee or commission, and we had 5 volunteers step up. They are the commission. They've got terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 years, each of them. They took information that came from city staff and a study that was done on northern Michigan municipalities and what they were paying city council and our mayor. And none of us really, the current representatives, did not get into this for the money. I get paid $15 a meeting. The mayor gets paid $25. And that's been that way for a long, long time, never been reviewed. Well, the compensation committee has recommended increasing to the numbers you see on the screen. And I asked if that could start maybe in 2 years, and they said, no, state law requires it to happen now. So my compensation is now much higher in my second year of serving than it was in the first year. And no complaints, but very interesting. And that I'm glad we did it, because I did it from the standpoint that I want to attract service workers. I want to attract younger people to serve, and compensation can come into play. So a service worker to take 2 Monday nights off a year when they're only making $15 a meeting just didn't make sense to me. And I really hope this opens up opportunities for younger folks in our service community to serve. I am pro development. I obviously want to see Petoskey preserved for everything it is downtown. We've got a wonderful, wonderful history, but we've got opportunity to do some great new things. And we've been able to pass approval to go forward with some developments. Nothing's been torn down yet or ready to build, but this is a place called Lofts at Lumber Square. It is approved to go up on the Gruler property across from Tom and Dick's, who know that area. It will be affordable housing. We approved something called pilot funding, which is lower taxes for the people who will live there and for the developer. So we can make that affordable for workers at a number of different levels. And it's a wonderful location that's very walkable into town. So folks who can afford to live there can also afford to work downtown without having to need a car. The Bay Street development, boutique hotel. This is at Bay and Howard. And right now it's the old rug store, and it's an old building, and the intent is to tear that down and put this up. And then we've seen plans for apartments and condos and boutique hotel, but it would be a great development. All of the parking is self-contained underneath. And then we're working with the developer in considering a parking ramp above the parking lot behind it that would hold a number of different, I forget how many parking spaces, but because it's on a downslope, there's no ramp inside the ramp needed, which means a lot more spaces. So you can access it from an alley up on one level and from the street down on another level. And could be pretty exciting, because right now it's behind Petoskey Plastics and this place and kind of Duffy's and that whole area. And it's sort of hidden. There's one plan that has a third level that's actually a third-story park that would make all the parking covered, and there'd be greenery and benches up there and views of the lake. So I think that's kind of exciting. And this one is actually, I don't expect anybody to recognize it, but this is the old Family Video store on Mitchell Street. And the developer has been approved to go forward. This will be more high-end apartments or condos. Super nice. That first floor that you can't kind of see in, that's all first floor parking. So it's off-street parking. And there will be one retail unit, I believe, it's approved for that. But then the second, third stories are all more housing. And housing is at a crisis level in northern Michigan. And so really excited to see this move forward in 2021. A little bit, I said I'd cover some highlights and some challenges. Highlights have included civil discourse and diplomacy. So when I learned about this at the MML training session, what they told us is that as an elected official, you're expected at a city meeting to sit up on sort of a stage and basically sit up straight, look at the audience, show total attention to your constituents, the people who voted for you. Not looking down, not taking notes, not distracted. And I found that to be a lot of work. That's the challenge part down below. It's not an easy thing to do. And while you're paying total attention to everybody for sometimes 3 hours, you're also you're listening, and you're working on what to ask and what to say so it comes out right. And so it's been great. It's something I've learned. I've applied it in business. I've applied it elsewhere. And so I think it's been a really good thing. And the fact that we practice that in Petoskey, which the stuff you see on the news at the state level and federal level is not that. And I'm thrilled to be part of that and to have learned it and see it really act out in Petoskey. I believe I've been able to make a difference, and that feels good. That's why I got into this. I've learned a lot. Met incredible people, Dave Meyer's on here, but his brother Dale served as mayor at one point. He was one of the first people who called me because he didn't know who I was, and he heard I was running for office, invited me to his office, and he invited one of his young guys, Colin Murphy, into the meeting, and they hammered me with some questions, and then they gave me some advice, and he offered his phone number and to be available anytime, and so did several other past mayors and representatives. So really heartwarming, and I know I wouldn't have met a lot of those people without running for office. The experience getting to know and working with our city staff has been phenomenal. We are so lucky to have the people we have working for the city of Petoskey. Every one of them that I've met, very experienced and just really great at what they do. Challenges including how difficult it is to conduct civil discourse and diplomacy. COVID-19, I'll talk briefly about on the next slide, but it's been a unique year, and switching from live meetings to mostly Zoom meetings throughout the year has been interesting. And the challenge has been limited citizen involvement. I've offered myself, I set up office hours at Southwoods early on. They stopped when the quarantine started. Nobody ever came. It was a once a week thing. I thought I'd reach out. I advertised it. When I do hear from people and I receive letters and phone calls, I'm thrilled, I'm excited. And I really encourage everybody to think about serving and running for an office or a commission. It doesn't take that much time, and it's really meaningful. And reach out to your city government and your officials, whether it's Rob Strabel or myself. Our emails are on the city website. Those letters are viewed by everybody. They're shared. Those emails, they have to be. Your voice is heard there. I'd like to say the news review is a place for that to happen, and it maybe once was, but it's not the same. That goes out to the public, but anything that's shared with the city via mail, email, whatever, is shared with all of us, and we respond. And our city staff has been great. Anytime anybody in Ward 3 has come to me, I get the city involved, and within a day they've responded, and within a week they've resolved the issue. So just that's been a great experience. So this is my one of my leaders that I follow. He lectures on leadership. He's a pastor down in Atlanta. His name is Andy Stanley. And just a few months ago, I was watching his Sunday morning program, and he was talking about leadership through crisis and leadership in hard times. And it made me realize that Chris Parker's on here, and he was new in his leadership position. Nikki Devitt at the chamber, the head of our hospital, the president of the hospital, all of these new leaders in Petoskey, Michigan during this crisis. Carlin Smith is on as the head of the chamber. If he was still head of the chamber, I don't think he could have been prepared for this. So you had all these leaders in new positions, and as Andy said, who could have been prepared? A pandemic combined with an economic shutdown that's left us teetering on an economic meltdown while navigating social unrest during an election year. And I would throw in at high waters and a total multi-million-dollar shore washout. None of us could have been prepared. The city, the people of Petoskey have pulled together and really done an amazing job. We had put several expenditures on hold early in the year, not knowing what the climate was going to be. Everything ended up getting paid for and money put aside for the future that was intended. So with that, I will be happy to respond to questions. And I appreciate this opportunity to serve you all.
Well, thanks, Brian. That was great. Just two quick questions. I know we're running a little short of time here, but can you give us a quick update on the bike trail rebuild of that? And then also what's going on with 200 Lake Street or the hole, as everybody calls it? Any progress or any thoughts on those two things? Just briefly, I don't need the whole McGillicuddy.
It'll be quick, I think. So there's the most beautiful shoreline washout that's impacted our bike trail, the Wheelway. It's sad. We've got a number of estimates on repairing that area. They're very expensive, and also preventing future shoreline damage. In the meantime, Rob Strabel got together with leaders from that township, I want to say Bear Creek, and the county, who've all agreed to pitch in and have a study done to route bicycle traffic safely between Petoskey and Bay Harbor. And that should be in place for this summer. The the future, there, nothing will be done. We won't have a bike trail along the water in that stretch in 2021. It's too big of an undertaking. In regard to, I still like to call it the Petoskey Grand, the Petoskey Grand plan that didn't happen July of 2020, or no, July of 2019 rather. The plan made it as far as the Planning Commission, never made it back to City Council. Actually, there's some confusion on that. And on July, whatever it was, the plan was shot down. And I believe part of it, frankly, was personalities. And I really believe that there's hope for that plan or other plans in that spot. I want to see economic development that creates jobs. It adds housing, which that plan would have. There was a convention center that would have potentially brought business into Petoskey year round, not just in the summer months. I believe those are some of the elements that we need to do in a lot of places in Petoskey. And I really believe that if we can sit down again with the right people, the right decision makers, that we can move something forward. We need to focus on the issues, leave the personalities out of it, leave our personal differences out of it. That's the way to negotiate, and that's the way to make progress.
Well, great. Well, thank you. And sorry I had to duck out of there. I've got a puppy here. You know, we all have the Zoom challenges, and he's tearing apart one of his toys, and he was eating what he shouldn't have been eating. So I had to jump on him quick. So talk about civil discourse, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, but thank you for this morning, obviously. And thank you for your service to this community as a city council member. I mean, you know, you're one of the lucky ones. You married a local girl, you know, which brought you here, of course. And but we really do appreciate your involvement in our club, but also city council and all the other things you're involved with. So with that, thank you very much. The meeting's over. If you could just push unrecord, I think we're good there. And
I will end the show.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I'll stop. Huh. Record. Where is it? Something had to go wrong.